step forward.
With Werewolf by Night, something that I was encouraged to watch. I watched recently, I think like early this morning, that I absolutely loved. For me, I think so. Is this a one-off thing or is this not a series?
I'm not entirely sure.
'Cause I thought it was a series, but it seemed like they
went hard for that episode, so I'm hoping this series. I feel like they have to do more with that. You can't just leave it there,
right?
But man,
I think it was a litmus test almost. I think it's because it's for those who don't know, it's about 50 minutes. No, probably less.
55. It's like 52, 55.
55 or 52. I'm not sure how long it is. With the credits and everything. I'm not sure how ultimately how long it was. But the thing about it is that it was longer than the episode of like She-Hulk or an episode of some of the other series like Moon Knight. Those are typically 35 to 40 minutes max. This was longer. So it's not quite a movie length, obviously, but it's longer than a regular show. And the way it ends, it seems a bit more definitive in some sense. Not to get into too many spoilers, but it starts off in black and white and it ends in color. And it's like, okay, I guess they're trying to say things are over now. So I think that it's a very different type of programming for Disney original material. So they're like, look, let's see if this works. If it does, aces, we'll do more. If it doesn't, we can scrap it now and leave it. So.
Was this rated TVMA? It had to be. Could not have.
Again, it's black and white. So it's
not even the black and white. It's the violence.
No. What I mean is, as we know from Tarantino doing Kill Bill, Bill was going to be like NC-17 during the Crazy 8 scene where he's cutting people to pieces because of all the blood and everything. So he said, okay, how do we make it black and white? And that way they were able to reduce the rating. They did the same thing. I'm not sure if that's the exact reason here, but I noticed like, they are going hard in the black and white, and then at the end they're in color because there's nothing to worry about. So I am trying to connect some dots that may not be there, but I do know in the past filmmakers have gone black and white to really get lower ratings.
Which makes sense. For me, this show, if the rest of the episodes keep this level of consistency in terms of quality and just like greatness, this is probably gonna be the best MCU show so far. The one constant thing that I may have talked about in the show before that I hate about all the MCU shows is that it's such a slow burn to get to what you want to see. If it's the thing about Captain Falcon, why do I have to wait to the last episode to see the guy in the suit I want to see? Or She-Hulk, it took a minute to kind of, it didn't take that long for it to become She-Hulk, but for her to do anything superhero-wise, it took like 3 episodes. For this one, it is the thing about Werewolf by Night, and they get directly into that really quickly. I'll save spoiler talk for, I guess, when it's over with, we over a full thing, because there is a character that's introduced in this that is a major plot point and has been for a lot of Marvel stuff. And he could be something big going forward, maybe a big part of future movies coming up. But it's dope though. I love you guys. Everybody that watches the show know I have a soft spot in my heart for horror and anything related to that camp. So they did a great job of like going with classic horror aesthetics. If you watch any of the Bride of Frankenstein or Frankenstein's monster stuff from like the 40s or the 30s when it was in black and white, those early movies, it kind of pays homage to that with a lot of the Latin writing on walls and things of that nature. Shout out to New Rockstars because they work fast to like decipher and decode all that stuff. I'm like, y'all are on it. Y'all got a great team. But it's dope though. I really loved it. Music choicing was an amazing thing. Everything about this was amazing to me. There's not too much I disliked about this first episode.
Yeah, I gotta agree. Going into this, I was expecting a little less serious. Like the trailer kind of made it look like, corny, like 1950s movie. Like it looked like a episode of Three Stooges almost. Like just
it was like Three Stooges versus Werewolf kind of a thing.
Right, basically. Yeah. But going into this, like, I mean, it's heavy. Like, it's a very serious piece of thing, and it introduced a character that I've been a fan of in Marvel for a little while, but Elsa Bloodstone. I had no idea she was going to be in this at all. Like, I didn't get that from the trailer at all, and I kind of intentionally didn't look too heavily into this because, I mean, I'm tired of being able to predict how Disney content goes, so I just kind of stopped looking too heavily into stuff. But watching this and seeing, that character get an actual introduction, I mean, it was well done. The two main characters, I enjoy seeing them both, and I'm looking forward to seeing them interact more with the rest of the MCU verse, but really well done show.
Yeah, I'm right there with both of y'all. I watched the trailer when it came out, I guess from the D23 when they premiered it originally, and I was surprised. I hadn't heard of them doing this, and I was like, this seems off-brand as hell for Disney. But I was like, okay, let's dance, because I did know about the characters from the comics and everything. So I was like, okay, let's dance. And then when I saw it, I was like, this is exactly what I was hoping for. And I had seen a review of it briefly before where I get like a 9 out of 10. I was like, okay, this actually, people are actually enjoying this content. And then after I saw the episode, I did some digging and saw some of the things. And there's a great shot in this, not really a spoiler, but there's a great shot in the episode where a character, oftentimes for transformations, like for if a character becomes a vampire for the first time or a werewolf for the first time, there's a big, huge, elaborate transformation scene. You have to remember, in this scenario, the character that's transforming, it's not about that character transforming as much as it is about the audience experiencing it. So how do they portray that? By having we see a character watching that happen, and they do it in such an amazing way with one shot, one take, that it was like that. I was applauding. Also, like Dev mentioned, the lighting. I saw the behind the scenes featurette where they talk about how they actually did the old school lighting effects they used back in the 40s and 50s to really create that kind of old school, not Hammer film, but kind of older genre kind of a horror aesthetic to it. So it very much was a homage to the horror of the past without being a parody of it. And was really fun. Y'all mentioned both y'all mentioned, or at least I think Charlie mentioned the music. Maybe it's others. I can't remember. I'm old. But the music was great. But the best part about it was this movie was I call it a movie. This was directed by a composer, Michael Giacchino, who oftentimes does great scores for movies. I believe this was his directorial debut was this. So clearly he's a huge fan of horror and whatnot, and he got a chance to do it. And it almost, ironically enough, it played well with the music and everything else because he is a director and a composer at the same time. Hey, that's our Powerpuff theme. When you hear that sound, it's Powerpuff.
Another thing that I really like about this first episode in particular, a lot of this is practical. I can't get into too many details about it, but the thing you spoke about in particular, with the transformation, I can talk about it a little bit. They have to put it in the trailer, and it's in the reference to him like transforming into like the flashes of like a strobe light when you see him changing form. Essentially, that was really just them switching out different people in different costumes and getting closer or farther away from the light source to kind of make it seem like he's getting bigger. It's just like camera tricks that have been around forever that kind of don't get used anymore because there's technology. And I appreciate that level of effort and stuff. I don't think that's not me saying the directors have to go back to using sticks and stones and raw film to record stuff, but when you revisit tools in a toolbox that haven't been used in a while, I think it's just nice. Especially when you actually see the werewolf. I don't think it's too big of a spoiler alert for people that are going to watch the series. The werewolf himself, Jack Russell, is like a lot of that stuff is practical effects. There's not. I don't know if there's any CGI outside of like maybe they put like something from his eyes, maybe.
Ted. Ted. Yeah, say Ted.
I'm not talking about Ted because Ted's a spoiler.
Oh, you okay?
No, I'm saying that's only CGI.
We thought you meant that there was.
Well, yeah, I'm talking about with the monster, with the werewolf in particular. Yeah. I didn't bring up Ted because Ted's a big.
That's not a whole issue altogether. But
people know there's gonna be a werewolf in this. I'm like, all right, we'll talk about the werewolf because you kind of know there's werewolf in this. Yeah. But with the werewolf in particular, his costume and the way they have him look, there's not that much CG. If I could see any, outside of like little things here and there, it looked like the traditional 1930s, 1940s monster flick werewolf. And at first, I didn't know if I was gonna feel it because I'm so used to seeing the werewolves and like or like lichens from like Underworld and things like nature that look badass to me. But the traditional look worked. I think it worked because you get to see just the remnants of the person there as well. Or if you've seen like Werewolf in London, like it was kind of really reminiscent to that in a sense. So I really enjoyed that.
That's a question I have for you guys. Is that do you think? Obviously, we enjoyed and some of the reviews and stuff, but I'm the oldest one here by far. But do you think that all audiences will appreciate what they were going for? The idea is very much referring to, like you said, Bride of Frankenstein and older movies, and they were in black and white and those kind of older universal horror monsters. Do you think that this will appeal to like younger audiences or audiences that don't know those films? Because it's a very deliberate choice.
I don't know if it will, just because I mean, again, like just looking at the trailer of it, like it put me in a certain mindset. So I can't imagine that they'll see that, like a kid will see that, like, oh, mommy, I want to watch this werewolf movie. Like I can't picture that happening. But I mean, if they do decide to journey on to it, because it is on Disney Plus, which has the most subscribers out of any streaming platform, period, right
Is that
now.
true? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they do. I mean, if they come across it and watch it, it's quality. I mean, I was in the same camp with Charlie. Like, I didn't actually know how I felt about the werewolf transformation at first. But when I saw him moving and flipping around and jumping and like how it looked, I appreciated it by the end. But I was nervous about it because like, but he pulled it off, and it added another dimension to that character to make him feel even more dangerous in this world of monsters than he could have been if it would have been like a CG wolf attacking, I guess.
Right, yeah.
To answer your question, I'll say yes for sure. Maybe not like 7-year-olds or like young kids, but from preteens up to my age, like in the early 20s, I'd say so for sure. If there's one thing that I know people my age want to do, there's two things. It's feeling like they're the first to discover something, or going back to vintage stuff and like acting like they're the first ones to see vintage. Yeah. So which I know a lot of people like to go back. Specifically, I know a lot of people here at this school, specifically where I'm at, where they've gone back and it's a thing where they're watching like the Bride of Frankenstein movies, those older movies, because it's something about them in regards to, I guess, the creativity or just like the allure of something that predated what you're used to seeing. It's different from what you're used to seeing. And I think that's what's great about this series. It has the nuances that you have in modern filmmaking in regards to the camera quality and things of that nature, but then they have that subtle nostalgia feel and I guess homey feel. I don't know if that's the word I'm looking for, but just throwback vintage feel when it comes to this.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. I hope you're right, and that is true. That people do. I mean, I know in general. I remember when I was young, one of the main things you want to do is you want to feel like you're older. You're in a rush to be older. So of course, seeing horror movies or having people think you're mature enough to handle that kind of content is a big plus towards that. And I know that young people, around 13, teenagers in general, oftentimes have a hipster element to them in which they want to feel like they want to be able to appreciate things from the past, whether to just seem like they are older again or to impress those that are older than them in some capacity. So yes, this would be in their zeitgeist for various reasons. I agree. I think one thing that's really we need to of course highlight too is the fact that this I guess episode or movie, whatever it might be, is very deliberate. It niches down. That's something that we know very much in the YouTube game and everything else, is that as opposed to trying to please at least common denominator, figure out who your own audience is and please them, please yourself essentially, and then kind of in a way, don't worry about all the rest of everyone else out there. So it's like clearly Giacchino and his team knew what they wanted to do with this, and they did it. And they didn't just say F everybody else. They said, celebrate this, those that enjoy it. And if you can't get on board, that's your choice.
Right. So. Right. Yeah, this felt like a horror fans movie or a horror fans thing, because it was a callback to almost all the horror tropes, all the things that people traditionally like about horror movies in this thing, and done pretty well to me.
Yeah, but it's a very specific type of old school horror. It's not like a slasher film or Jordan Peele, or it's a different type of thing.
Yeah. Well, I think from I'm not super deep into the horror community, but from the different social media things I've been in and different channels I've watched, horror is like one of the the only other genre I can think of that's like that is maybe like the wrestling and sometimes maybe anime, where they enjoy the origins of their genre. Like they enjoy in like one of the first horror movies to come out damn near as much as they enjoy the new stuff that come out. They love the innovation, but they respect the things that came before them as well. They don't just kind of like throw it away, which a lot of like sports probably in particular is like that as well. But they love everything from the complete timeline, and that's one thing I really appreciate about the genre and the community of people that love the genre so much.
Yes, that's true. That is true. Yeah, they wouldn't hardcore horror fans. Everyone that is, like I mentioned, Hammer fans to Raimi, classic Raimi fans to Splatterhouse fans, Romero fans, or the whole thing. Savini's, they do appreciate the craft that goes into horror in general. Like this episode had nothing but craft. You saw craft over the place. Everything from the costume design to like the music choices. To there's the choices with color that were used very very sparingly. Everything was very deliberate, and so it's that was great.
Yeah, and I feel like it transitions over to as well, because I mean, of course, it has a lot of whole appeal to horror fans, but there's also a lot of action appeal too. Like it feels a little bit like a underworld movie or a Van Helsing movie, or action horror movies that were coming up like the early 2000s. It has a lot of homage to that as well.
Yeah.
I mean, Elsa Bloodstone feels like Kate Beckinsale in some of those scenes. So,
she looks like a lot of those scenes too. I'm being honest with you.
Yeah, it wasn't because I feel like I can't remember what Kate Beckinsale's character's name was.
Celine.
Or Celine.
I feel like she.
Wow.
Yeah, I can't remember.
I messed that up all the way.
I can't even pull it off.
Selena.
But I feel like she doesn't. Elsa Bloodstone predate her. I'm pretty sure she must have been influenced.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Like Bloodstone came out like the 60s.
Yeah, so I'm sure that it was that. Because I want to read more.
Well, hold on. Her ancestor, like the dude, like the guy that died. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he came out in like the 60s. I think Elsa's more of a 2000s.
Yeah,
maybe,
she's
90s.
more of a recent character.
She's more recent, but I think
the 90s when I first saw her in the comics. I can't be certain.
They haven't been in too much stuff. She's in a lot of the Midnight Sun stuff now, which is like early 2000s.
That's first appearance in 2001.
2001. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
2001. So I can't pull when. I think the Underworld series came out after 2001. It did. It did. So
like 05, I think.
Probably 05 or something, right? So odds are Len Wiseman and his team that made Underworld were somewhat influenced or at least aware of Elsa Bloodstone. It's likely,
Possibly. Another thing I thought was really dope is another small thing. If you notice that some parts of the film, they'll have like it looks like a halo, I guess, for lack of a better term, in like the top right corner of the screen.
They call it the cigarette burn.
Yeah. What I realized from me doing this is just for me researching some of that, and just again, I'm an editor, so I'm also like kind of curious with it. That's more so like a marker to show when to do cuts. Like in old school film, like you see that, like, all right, cool, we know we got to cut something immediately there. And if you paid, I guess this is something I picked up from, I think I watched the new Rockstar video about it earlier today. They focus on the fact that whenever you see that change and they change scenes, they change the entire vibe and music and tone of the scene. It's not just a scene change, but it's a complete environment, atmospheric change at the same time. It's pretty dope to me. It's just small things like that make a series that not everyone will see the first time through or even see at all, but it still makes it just look better or just a better feel all around.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was, and obviously it's very deliberate. And I'll be honest, the first time I was aware of cigarette burns was when I watched the movie Fight Club, and Tyler Durden points them out to the audience and breaks the fourth wall, pointing out what they are. And then I watched a lot of movies that do that. Back then, they don't do them anymore now, really, because they're all digital, basically. But if you, especially back in the day, if you watch movies in the movie theater, you would see them all the time. They're just popping up. They have to for the people who had to choose the reels. So and you're right, Dev. It was very much like when those things happened. There was one that happened, I think, right before they went out for the main hunt. I'm not gonna get. We know this. That happens. There's a hunt in this. But before they go out for the main hunt, there's a cigarette burn at the top right corner, and they go to it, and it's a completely different environment, completely different scene, kind of a thing. So yeah, it's a very, very deliberate choice.
A question I have for both of you guys: How much were you waiting, or I guess how much angst were you waiting for a appearance or a mention of Blade or Moon Knight throughout this?
I mean, I wasn't expecting it at all, honestly. Like I thought this was going to be kind of isolated. I don't know how they plan on connecting this to the rest of everything yet, just because it's so off tonally from a lot of things that they've done before. I know they will for sure. I don't know.
Yeah, they have to. They have to.
The Moon Knight one I see probably before anything else, just for the fact that Moon Knight as a character was introduced in a Werewolf by Night comic, as he was like hunting him essentially. So I see that probably happening maybe sometime in the soon. I don't know. But with them, they showed like at least I believed it to be a vampire. It looked very Nosferatu.
No, yeah, it's clearly a
vampire. And they were showing like the weapons that go against it, and like, again, it's like a club of hunters. I'm like, all right, you're just saying Blade without saying Blade at this point. Like,
what's funny about that? I guess we've revealed that Blade is not in this episode, but there's a dude that looks very much like is that supposed to be like another version of Blade? I mean, it's not Blade. It's not Blade. but it's like that's
It's Blad.
it's
Knife.
Blad. Yeah,
That's his
it's
name.
Blad. Yeah,
I thought it was like, is this like its ancestry? But then
It's
they
Knife.
confirmed that the show's in modern day. Like it's not
Mhm.
it's not in the
Well, that's
1930s.
so that's the thing to answer your question, Dev. Was I waiting for Moon Knight or for Blade or for anybody else? Royal Knight, not Royal Knight. I'm sorry. What's the knight with the sword? That's in
The Black Knight?
Midnight Sun. Yeah, Black Knight. So I was like, no, I'm not, because I wasn't sure what time period this was set in. The black and white aesthetic and everything, and I didn't know that was Bloodstone, Elsa Bloodstone. I was like, is this in the 50s? And then they confirmed very much so at the end of the episode. I was like, yeah, this is actually
Like
more
today.
or less today. That's the whole idea of the color. Is like this is actually now. Surprise. So I wasn't expecting anyone that from what we assume or what we think of as the current MCU to be in there. So
I'm excited to see Elsa Bloodstone and other stuff. Another thing I noticed, like throughout this episode, they made it a point to not have guns in this. Really, like all the weapons and things that were using this like seem medieval, and they seem to be weapons of her ancestor or her ancestors, and she was like kind of collecting them as the episode went on and becoming just like, I guess, whole, and for lack of a better sense. So it was really dope to see that. I'm really just excited to see what she does later, because now she's like roided up. Granted, we don't know to the extent of how powerful the Bloodstone is, or the gem. Or what, I know it was originally a gem in the comics, and they changed it to a stone again because they like doing that. But I'd like to see her and see what she has to go against, because she's kind of OD right now, at least on the Earth level.
Yeah, she's like sometimes regarded better than even Blade and stuff. But the thing is, like, she's if you're going to do a Midnight Suns, because I saw a video, it wasn't New Rockstars, so someone else talking about the idea that the future of Marvel in a way, or MCU, is going to have monsters. It seems like it's going to be a pretty big thing. So if you're doing, if the new Avengers is basically the Midnight Suns, and I'm not sure that they want to have Blade as quote unquote the Samuel Jackson or the Nick Fury, but a new team, she's obviously the poster girl for the new Scarlet Witch. I'm sorry, Black Widow. Damn, I'm old. Black Widow in no sense. You obviously want to have powerful women in there too. Why not? So it's I really hope she comes back. It'd be a huge waste for her not to be used again.
I don't see them being the Midnight Suns being the new Avengers as much so as them being like the new Defenders. Is what I see. Like it's going to be just like some Earthbound street level stuff that they do, but it's going to be horror based. This is what I'm guessing.
I do think that because they have a Blade film coming out. They have our boy Black Knight was introduced in a movie, so it does seem that they will have them. It won't be obviously as big or grand scale as the Avengers, but it will be cinematic. It won't just be that the Defenders was only on streaming on small screen. I do think that the Midnight Suns film, it'll be a film that'll be in theaters, hopefully, with a bigger budget, hopefully.
Maybe. I'll say be in the series, honestly. I don't see them.
It may be.
It's a lot of characters to do in a movie, man.
That's true.
Like to develop that many characters, and granted, they may all get their own independent stuff first.
Yeah, they introduce different things. Yeah.
Even then, that's a lot to bounce around to. I don't know. Because even in the original Avengers movies, I feel like certain characters kind of got ignored. Like I think Thor and Black Widow kind of got ignored a lot, which is why they were like giving them their own movies later on. They kind of finish out their arcs, I guess.
Hawkeye and Black Widow were introduced on. Black Widow was introduced obviously in Iron Man 2, but Hawkeye didn't have anything really until Avengers, and he was a zombie most of that movie.
Right.
So yeah.
So we'll see. I prefer to be a series just so you can have time on each one. After watching, like I went back recently, I told you about it, and Rebecca rewatched the whole Defenders run from Daredevil up through Luke Cage and yes, even Iron Fist. I think if anything else, it was dope to see all these characters get their own development. So when they came together, you don't have to explain why they all do what they do because you kind of know them from watching their own series.
Right, exactly, and that's what people say. That's why people think that the Justice League movie by Joss Whedon works so well is because they did. Oh wait, they didn't do that. Oh no. Oh.
Anyway.